I don't care if every fucking young girl in this fucking town in the next few weeks. Look, I'll make it simple. We need her young. We need her hot. We need her now. How the old bitch has been able to stick around for this long. That's the fucking mystery to me. Oh, Oscar winner, my ass. When was that? Back in the 30s? What? For King Kong? No. I don't give a fuck what we promised her. This is network TV, not a fucking charity. Find me somebody new. Now. Hey, did you know that a woman's fertility starts to decrease about the age of 25? How old is Jennifer? You better get busy.
Hey, Adrenalheads, I'm Billy.
And I'm Mark.
Today we are covering The Substance. Just be warned, this is a spoiler-full podcast, so if you have not seen the movie, do not listen to this. Or, if you want to hear what we have to say, then see the movie and then completely disagree with what we just said, that is completely your prerogative.
A lot of people are going to disagree, probably.
Probably.
All right, to give you guys a little tidbit of what's going on, and I'm sorry for you listeners that are out there. It's been a long time in the coming to get to this, and I talked about it, and we never got to it, but the holidays and life got in the way. But we are back, and we are doing this. So this movie came out, and it was being regarded as one of the better movies. Now, mind you, Billy and I did cover Longlegs, and that was great. I love that movie. And this one came out and it became more of an avant-garde kind of movie at that time when it came out. And a lot of people were criticizing it, how gross it was or strange it was. But it was so enigmatic, I would say, for its time in 2024, because we're approaching the new year, everybody. It's going to be 2025 soon. So, it was directed by Coralie Farragut, I think. And
I believe that's true.
And it was written by the same person. It was produced by Shudder, of all things.
I think it's awesome that Shudder is becoming a producer of horror movies, because they started off as just a little tiny streaming service, and they've produced a bunch of other good movies like, oh gosh, I forgot the name of it, but it's about this. It's a slasher film from the perspective of the killer.
Yes, actually, we did cover it. I did that with Jamie. I'm sorry, you listeners are probably going to yell at me. Mark, you covered it, but you don't remember the name. No, I don't. It's like In a Violent Nature, I think it was called.
I think that's exactly what it's called.
So yeah, we did cover it, and a lot of people did not like it, and we got some feedback on it saying, "I didn't like that movie." It was kind of like if you were Jason and you were in the eyes of Jason and you were killing, and there was only certain points where in the movie it did happen, but we did cover it. I enjoyed it for the fact, and there was no music. It was hardly any music. There was like a little bit, but the way they were presented. So it was one of the, like, 2024 came out with a lot of cool horror thriller kind of films that were very interesting for its time.
Yes.
And are being heralded right now. Currently, Nosferatu is out, which is a new remake. Billy, you're like, yes.
I haven't seen it yet, but I'm so excited to see it. I hear many wonderful things, especially the fact that there's like vampire dick in it. And so everyone keeps talking about, they keep talking about Bill's prosthetic penis. And I'm so like, what is this all about? I want to know what's going on.
What does this look like? Do they have a tin bucket for that at the AMC theaters? I don't know.
That would be hilarious. It's a meme right now, but I'm very excited to watch it, and I definitely want to cover it once I've watched it. So
cool. Awesome. I would love to see it myself, and I have yet to see it myself, and I would love to cover it myself because I am, as you guys know, we kind of missed out. We were supposed to cover Dracula, Ben Elmore and myself, for Halloween. We never got to it, but honestly, it's still on the list. We could always go back to it. Halloween is all the time for me. If you look at my apartment, forget it. I'm a grown child at 52. But but we will eventually get there when it comes to those films. But like I said, 2024 has come up with some significant thriller, horror, sci-fi kind of movies, shows, everything.
I would say that horror's become very cerebral, and I would use this word loosely, literary. It's become very, like, it really does feel like you're watching a ghost story, like an actual
Yes.
ghost story, which I like this. I like that horror's becoming a bit more cerebral in this way.
It's different in comparison to over 15 years ago when we had Paranormal Activity and all the what would you call it, where everything was in the first person shoot, like a POV. It was all POV stuff, like Blair Witch and everything else. It's changed that format back.
Oh, you mean found footage
kind of material. Yeah. We've gone away from that. It's gone back to more story-based content, and it's really good. And then with this particular movie, we will elaborate more into it, and I'll just give you a tidbit of my overall thoughts just before we get into our tagline of the movie. But my overall thought in general, when I first saw it advertised, and in my first watching of this movie, which is called The Substance, that had to be more Dennis Quaid and a young up-and-comer. I thought of it as David Cronenberg kind of movie.
Yeah.
And to give you an idea of what the movie is, if you haven't seen it, and spoilers, everybody, yes, we are spoiler fools. So because every once in a while, I'll get this on Panels of Pixels, but you didn't say it was spoiler full. Yes, it is spoiler full. You've had enough time. This movie's been out for a while now. So the tagline for this movie is, have you ever dreamt of a better version of yourself? You have control yourself. You have to control yourself. Literally. And it's literally, that is a brief summary of what we see within the movie itself. And it's a duality. And well, total take on this particular movie, box office was 77.3 million, which wasn't bad. The special effects were done by Pierre-Olivier Person and his company Pop FX, and chef's kiss to it because it's all mostly practical. Everybody, I love it. Oh my god. And when I say practical, I'm talking prosthetics, everything.
I'm glad that people are coming back to practical special effects, because this era of filmography that used a lot of CGI, I would have to say would be the worst era in movies. Will and I were talking recently about that. In fact, we were like, damn, this year actually produced some really good movies. And then I was thinking about it, and they all had one thing in common: practical special effects.
I don't mind a mix. You'll have some practical effects you can't get with CGI. So that way you have to actually do it. But you kind of smooth over it, but it's dependent on the budget. When I see everything full practical effects and it's really B movie oriented and it's so bad, that's when I go, you should have used some CG on that. That's when I kind of say morphing is good. Mix of both. But the thing is, this did it very well in a sense of how they orchestrated it elementally when it comes to the special effects. And they did a great job with it. And it kind of like, I wouldn't say it was seamless. Nothing is ever truly seamless.
No.
You know, if you look at the first Jurassic Park, everybody, it's not seamless. So, and I hold that to the highest extent of, because that was the pinnacle of when practical and CG effects were coming together at the same time. So yeah, it did show something to me that like with I'm sure K and B effects out there are going, we love this. I would love to ask Greg Nicotero if I get to see him again at a convention, be like, hey bro, what'd you think? And he'd be like, that was done well. And it was done well. And if he says that, I'll be like, yes. If he goes no, I'll be like, ugh. But I haven't talked to Mr. Savini himself, the Sultan of Ghoul or Splatter, as our friend Patricia Tallman calls him. But yeah, I haven't talked to Tom about it, but I'm pretty sure he'll be like, that was done creatively. It was done very well. It's a lot of prosthetics, very much like how he had done with Jason Voorhees and Friday the 13th Part 4, or Part 1. But the thing is that you need that physical effects, and I don't know how to drive it home when it comes to horror movies or even certain other movies. I'm a huge Godzilla enthusiast, as you guys know, and I'm a huge kaiju fan. I know it's goofy that I like to watch a stuntman in a rubber suit playing a big, large dinosaur mutated, but I love it better when it's something like that than it is completely CG. And
CGI just makes things feel too cartoony, and
yes, it can.
People can't relate to that. People can't really relate to something that's overly animated. They need something that reminds them that, oh, this is supposedly in the real world. It has to help maintain the illusion, or as they used to tell me when I was in writing classes and stuff, you have to maintain the dream. You have to maintain it by giving something to the audience person, the reader, whomever, that reminds them that, oh, this could actually happen. That kind of thing.
Yeah, it's the putting it in the readers or the viewers or even listeners' mind that this could possibly happen to you and make it believable at that point, because that's what fiction is for the most part. If you even read H.G. Wells' Time Machine, if you read that book, honestly, even though how old that book is, you could feel that it is a possibility to go through time and meet the Morlocks and the Eloi and stuff like that. Now, yeah, I sound like an old person because I'm talking about an old book, but The Time Machine actually is one of my favorites, obviously. But to move on about the movie itself, IMDb gave it a score of 7.4 out of 10, which is very, very good for it. The Rotten Tomato score is at a 90% so far. And the tomatometer or the audience score is at 75%. So it shows that it's done well. So I'm thinking it has done so much already that it intrigued a lot of people. Now, will this get Oscar nods? Probably not.
No.
Will this get MTV awards? Movie awards? Yes.
And it's already garnered a cult following. So
yeah.
And for once, I actually agree with Rotten Tomato. Most of the time, I think Rotten Tomato is full of what. But in this instance, I'm like, yeah, you're right. 90% sounds right. That sounds correct to me. So,
well, it's if you think about it, look like tomato sauce on the star or the Hollywood Walk of Fame in the very beginning of the movie.
That's true.
All right. So, do you want to enlighten us with the synopsis?
For sure. Have you ever dreamt of a better version of yourself? Only better in every way. Seriously, you've got to try this new product. It's called The Substance. It changed my life. It generates another you, a new, younger, more beautiful, more perfect you. And there's only one rule. You share time. 1 week for you, 1 week for the new you, 7 days each. A perfect balance. Easy, right? If you respect the balance, what could possibly go wrong?
All right. Well, with that, we could go into people we may know within the film. So, Billy, do you want to start out or shall I?
Of course, because I love Demi Moore so much. She is literally one of my favorite actresses. So, Demi has been doing movies forever. After rising to prominence in the late 80s and early 90s, Demi Moore became the world's highest paid actress by 1995, which is actually a big deal because not a lot of actresses can claim to be highest paid. She has received numerous accolades, including nominations for Primetime Emmy and 4 Golden Globe Awards, and she began her career as a model. And I do recall being told about General Hospital, where she first starred on TV.
Yep.
And then after she departed the show in 1983, she rose to prominence as a member of the Brat Pack, which not a lot of people know this who aren't born before 90, I would say 93. The Brat Pack was a small group of actors in the 80s who kind of would reoccur on TV a lot and hang out a lot together. So she was in Blame It on Rio, St. Elmo's Fire, About Last Night, and then she got her big break in the movie Ghost, which is amazing. And there's parts of that movie that still spook me to this day. Yes. She had more success in A Few Good Men, Indecent Proposal, Disclosure, and she voiced Esmeralda in Hunchback of Notre Dame. And then one of my other favorite movies, Striptease, because Annie Lennox mostly does that soundtrack, and I love Annie Lennox.
Oh, yeah.
And then she kind of started to go downhill with The Scarlet Letter, and then The Juror. I don't recall ever watching G.I. Jane, but I know a lot of people like to make fun of that movie. And then which all fell below commercial expectations. She has since held sporadic leading roles in art house films as well as supporting roles in Charlie's Angel Full Throttle, where she plays a badass villain. And then Bobby, Mr. Brooks, Margin Call, and then on television, she was in If These Walls Could Talk, Five, Empire, and she played Anne Woodward in Feud, Capote versus the Swans, which I watched and which prompted me to read his biography. She received renewed critical recognition with this movie, The Substance, which is great because I feel like the yesteryear actors don't get enough respect from the newer audiences because much of what we see on TV now is because of them. So she's been married 3 times. From 81 to 85, she was married to musician Freddie Moore. And then from 87 to 2000, she was married to Bruce Willis, which she still maintains a very intimate relationship with to this day. She's even been there helping him as he kind of declines, which is very sad. You should look that up and read more about that, in my opinion. She has 3 daughters. One of her daughters actually is featured on the movie Striptease with her. And then she married Ashton Kutcher from 2005 to 2013. And then she wrote a memoir, Inside Out, which came out in 2019 and became a New York Times bestseller.
Yeah, this movie came out of nowhere, and Billy had mentioned it that she's been taking care of her ex-husband of all things, Bruce Willis. I think they have like a family commune, like an area where they all live together.
Yes,
I think Scout Willis is there with her husband and her child. Scout herself has been in the film industry herself, and she's been heralded as or not heralded, has been discriminated in Hollywood based upon her appearance. She has more of the chiseled look with her chin from her father, which is Bruce Willis.
Was she the Willis daughter that was in House Bunny with Anna Faris? Okay.
And she had the neck brace and everything, and they kind of try to hide it. And she also did a movie not too recently, I would say within the past 4 or 5 years, that was like a direct to video or direct to streaming. And she, before that movie came out, she actually did have surgery to reduce her chin. But she is a mother now. She has a child with her husband, who I believe is a director or producer or something. But they are happily married. She is out of the limelight, unlike her parents, who are very much stardom. We all know them. They're, as I call it, celebrity legacy at this point, because literally everybody knows who Bruce Willis is. Everybody knows who Demi Moore is, just based on their names. But she was ridiculed in the press, which I find so, like, it angers me. It just angered me for the fact. But for Demi to come out within this to show and portray a character that feels that the test of time within Hollywood is based upon looks and stature, and how you, and because we all know that everything is in either prosthetic surgery or some sort of thing to enhance your looks to get that feel, but she's aged very well, in my
There's this
opinion.
there's this saying that people have these days that goes, "You're not ugly, you're just poor." Because honestly, most of
Mm,
those people would be not as attractive as they are now if it weren't for the globs of money they've thrown at their aesthetic. So,
correct. Yeah. To point a little finger at something that I looked at recently. I've finished my Friends watch, which I do every
mhm,
once in a while. Now, mind you, there are a lot of stars in that, but I also watched the Friends reunion that came out a few years ago. Now, if all you remember on HBO or Max, it's still on there. You could go see it. And there are people on that show that have had cosmetic surgery, and I understand it. And some of them have come out saying that they regret have done that kind of thing. Matthew Perry, we lost. Obviously, he had to get dentures, and in the reunion, you could see clearly he had dentures,
mhm,
and he, was suffering through addiction and everything else, and through the test of time, hair loss, things of that nature. He showed his age far more than what he should have because of what Hollywood
mhm.
does to you. Courtney Cox has come out stating that she has had botched, you know, cosmetic surgery as well. And you could see it, but in my opinion, she holds it well considering of the botchness. She's still a beautiful woman. It's just that I wish she would never have done that because I always thought naturally she was just perfect,
She's
from
letting her fillers dissolve, and she's told in like 2023 she was on Gloss Angels
Mhm.
podcast, Gloss Angeles podcast,
Okay.
and she talked about how she got very pressured into getting these surgeries.
Yes.
And I mean, there's even actresses like Sarah Jessica Parker who refuses to do it, which I think is wonderful.
I think so too.
I'm pro natural aging.
So, yeah.
Do not put crap in your face. You will look worse. I promise you. I've never seen one Botox injection or plastic surgery that went well.
Mhm.
You look plastic, and you don't even look like yourself. I mean, one other person I think of that has done horrors to her body because of Hollywood is Amanda Bynes. You can't really recognize her anymore.
Oh yes, yes. But I think that all stemmed from her mental issues due to that
Yes.
and
Yeah.
abuse that she had struggled with. As far as the rest of the Friends cast, I would look at Jennifer Aniston. You could
Hmm.
tell there was some stuff done within the reunion. I noticed that right away. I was like, wow. It's like, wow. You could tell they didn't really do much when it came to makeup.
Hmm.
But the person that shined through out of all the women that were on that show, Lisa Kudrow, you could tell there was no surgery done on her.
Hmm.
And she is so divine. I
Hmm.
just loved how she looked. Matt LeBlanc let himself go. And he admits it. He goes, "Oh, I got a few on pounds and whatever." Hey, still a handsome dude.
Yeah.
And same thing with David Schwimmer.
Yeah.
And I realized that as a reference, I'm using that because of Hollywood
Hmm.
and what they do and what they present to us. You got people out there that just put stuff in their face just to make them look younger. I actually, uh, I do home theater installations, as a majority of you know. I'm not going to say what company or what I do and exactly, but I've been in people's homes, and there was it was an older actress, and it was that I'm going back 16 years ago when I was in this person's house, but literally I saw the facelift. She literally had recently had a facelift, and you
Hmm.
could see the stitches behind her ear from behind the hair. And she was an older woman, and you could tell, but the way I'm like, oh my goodness. And I'm like, I could never fathom that. I can never fathom the idea of changing myself for appeal or a look to move on. Now, mind you, when I watched this movie and I loved Demi Moore, you could tell she was just as who she was. and I didn't see anything of cosmetic surgery.
I did around the cheeks just a little bit.
Very slightly.
Yeah. I
Okay.
could tell that she's had something done to her cheeks. And let's be very clear, when we have this conversation about this, we're not degrading
Oh,
anybody
we're not
for
degrading
no,
anybody.
no.
We're just
But this is the point of this movie, though, is to talk about that. Is to talk about what people are
yes.
doing to themselves to stay relevant. And I always wonder, like, who made this obsession with youth? I don't recall ever. I mean, I'm a 30-year-old man. I've never.
Hmm.
I didn't really particularly enjoy being young. I haven't enjoyed being young, but that's just my experience. But but I don't recall ever having so much passionate opinions about what was new and fresh and stuff like that growing up. But
Hmm.
there always seems to be this sort of um, uh, demographic of people who just care about what's new and fresh, and I don't know who that is or who made that rule or
I think
whatever.
it had to be within the 80s or late 80s at that
Mhm,
point because everything was in your face, glamorous in your face, and
mhm.
yeah, it had to be sparkling. Everything was spirit fingers, you know.
Spirit fingers,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. You know, it's like not to point out, you know, a specific movie, Spirit Fingers.
Yeah.
Anyhow, but the thing is, yeah, I think it came out within the late 80s, and at that point, it was the sizzle town of Hollywood of like everything is the new it person. They are the
Yeah.
young thing.
Well, I'm a millennial, and when I was in school and stuff like that, when I was in my teens, vintage was all the rage. That's
Yes.
where the hipsters were like really being a hipster.
70s,
Yeah,
80s, even
being a hipster was
60s.
considered a cool thing back
Yes.
then, and
And now it's
vintage.
like looked down upon
Yeah,
at certain
yeah,
points. It's like,
yeah,
oh, you're a hipster. Why? Oh, you're a whole snooty
yeah,
tooty.
yeah. But we didn't like. I just don't recall. Well, I mean that's not true because if I look on the other side of people I wasn't associating with, they
Yeah.
were definitely like MTV, Jersey Shore type people. So I don't know.
Yes.
I guess I'd have to do more reflecting on my youth to really get that answer down. But it just didn't seem to me at the time that
Yeah.
what was new and fresh was so important. So I don't know.
It's interesting. Yeah, a lot of those points do come out within the film, and it
Mhm.
is a commentary on that. Literally, the whole movie is a commentary,
Yeah,
if you think about it.
yeah.
But we kind of sucked the room dry of talking about Demi Moore, about Hollywood, and all that good stuff. Let's move on to the next star in the movie, which is the youngest version of her, and that would be Margaret Qualley, who plays Sue in the movie. And she was born October 23rd in 1994.
My age.
And she's an American actress, a daughter of actress Andie MacDowell. Andie MacDowell. Oh, you don't know Andie MacDowell? Oh my
I've
God.
no. Mm-mm.
Okay, all right. I'm not going to go into that. I'm not going to tease you or anything, but
I will. I will do homework then. How about that?
do some homework. You will see it. You'll see it when you start to see the movies that she's in, and she has not had cosmetic surgery, by the way.
Mm.
Anyhow, Andie MacDowell's daughter. So Margaret Qualley had trained as a ballet dancer in her youth. She made her acting debut in 2013 drama film called Palo Alto and gained recognition for her supporting role in the HBO drama series The Leftovers from 2014 to 2017. I have never seen it, so I'm pretty sure she was great in it.
Oh gosh. Okay.
Now you figured out who
Yeah,
Andie
I know who
MacDowell
that
is.
is. I know who that is. I've seen her movies.
There you
I can't believe I forgot that because there was this long running skit on early Mad TV,
Okay,
where
I
they were
remember.
when they were making fun of her accent and everything, and
Yes, because she couldn't do an accent
she's like, I cannot do it.
because she had a southern accent for the
Yeah.
most part. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah. Oh, we'll let you listeners go research that
Yeah.
as well.
Do some
Anyhow,
homework.
to go on, Qualley then appeared in films such as The Nice Guys in 2016, Death Note in 2017, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood in 2019, which I do love, everybody. It's a Quentin Tarantino movie, and I really enjoy that film. And she also performed in the video game Death Stranding 2019. which is so funny because you have Norman Reedus that was in that. Or
Mhm.
am I right? Okay.
Yeah, that was him.
She received critical acclaim and nominations for Primetime Emmy Awards for playing Anne Rankin in the FX biographical miniseries Fosse Verdon, 2019, and the title role in the Netflix drama miniseries Made in 2021. Qualley has since appeared in Yorgos Lanthimos films Poor Things in 2023. If you don't know what that is, that was a very interesting movie. And Kinds of Kindness in 2024. So she's got another film out as well. So, as well in the body horror film The Substance in 2024, the last of these earned her a nomination for a Golden Globe Award. So we're
She
looking.
deserves it.
Yeah, she does. Very pretty little thing. Kudos to both her and Demi Moore for exposing themselves, because showing up on film, honestly, if I showed up on film, I'd be like, hello, no, I don't want to see, you don't want to see that. No, no, no,
Right.
no, no, no.
Same.
Yeah. I was like, I have burger butt. And
Burger.
I have like kind of like uh breakfast sausage between my legs or something. Who knows?
My
Anyhow.
body dysmorphia should be studied, so I definitely understand.
So exactly. But kudos to them to opening up and allowing them to be exposed that way. And especially for Demi Moore, her age, and honestly, she has nothing to be ashamed of.
No, she looks amazing even now.
She looks amazing.
Yeah.
The younger one, Quali, forget it. She's got her whole life ahead of her. She's still tight, fit like a toiga. And she is honestly, she's beautiful. She's got the beautiful eyes too. And and what they did to Demi Moore, honestly, throughout this movie was wow. And we'll go into that later. All right. Lastly, we have one person, because honestly, I wanted to break this down to just a few people, because that's literally all we have is just a few main cast roles.
Mm-hmm.
So what is that?
So we have Dennis Quaid, who plays Harvey. Dennis Quaid also has a very long, illustrious career.
Right.
And I'm going to go through it really quickly just because there's so many. Let's see. First time I saw him was in Dragonheart in 1996, which is an amazing movie.
Yes,
and then there's Parent Trap with Lindsay Lohan. He was in the Rookie, and then he plays weather scientist. There's a word for that. I just can't think of it. And The Day After Tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was in Yours, Mine, and Ours. And then he was also in The Nights Went Out in Georgia, Jaws 3D, Any Given Sunday, Played for Keeps. Strange New World, Midway, and then obviously Substance, which is what he was recently in.
Yeah.
So he's earned Primetime Emmy Award, Golden Globe, and a Screen Actors Guild Award. He also portrayed Deputy U.S. Marshal Cheryl Lynn in the Paramount Western series Lawmen, which I should watch. I do like Westerns. And then Ronald Reagan in the biographical film Reagan, which also came out this past year.
Yes, which I still have yet to watch because I'm curious about that. His son, we all know, plays in The Boys, as we all know. And he was also married to, do you know?
I don't know.
Oh. All right. Well, that would be a little homework assignment for you listeners, and as well for Billy, because he's going to look this up probably and going, oh, okay. So other than that, we'll move on because we have to get back to the movie, everybody. Anyhow, general thoughts of the movie. So let's get into that, Billy. So what are your general thoughts, overall thoughts of this movie? Did you like it? Did you hate it?
I loved it, actually.
Okay.
At first I was like, what's going on here? I had a lot of nitpicking when it came to like so when the potential actor or entertainment person gets told about this new product, they get very clandestine instructions on how to get it, how to use it, and so on. I disliked the fact that there weren't enough instructions, which I know is kind of silly. But it's like if any real person were to get this stuff, would they really like? It's like you need a nursing degree to be able to administer this stuff into your own body. Like there's so many gadgets and doodads that go with it, and there's very minimal instruction. That was my only qualm. But otherwise, the movie itself was amazing. I mean, the ambiance was on point. It kind of made obvious references to certain things, and I like that the references were pretty obvious. And it wasn't like other media cultural material. It was more
Mhm.
about the message that it was trying to tell you while you're
Yes.
watching it. It made it pretty obvious, like, this is bad. We don't like this. This is the weird thing that people do. Why do they do this? But
It's just almost like an addiction kind of thing as
yeah,
well. Yeah,
yeah.
they're addicted to their looks. They're addicted to their fame. Also, on top of that, not seeking help. Then, then you have to deal everything about the whole commentary about how Hollywood is revered
Mhm.
because how it's looked at. Uh, the way the introduction of the film it is and everything else, it shows that you're born, then you die, then you're gone, then you're a marker on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. That's it.
Yeah, and it's crazy
And that's literally
to
in the very introduction of the film
yeah.
too, by the way.
Well, what's crazy about it too is that um, most people be like, no normal person would be obsessed with this.
Mhm.
But then you go on social media and you see everyone basically doing the same thing.
Yes.
And you have to also consider the fact that when you've done entertainment for decades, it becomes your whole existence. So,
Correct.
of course, you're going to try to do the things to keep that existence.
Mhm.
And but then you have to remember that these are also people. Back, not last year, the year before,
Mhm.
I believe, I went to a convention in San Antonio that was doing. It was like I guess a nerd convention, but it had actors from certain TV shows at the convention, and that's there I met Shannon Doherty.
Oh yeah,
And
you mentioned this before to me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And because like when you get ready to meet someone famous, and they're and like the Charmed girls, they're not just kind of famous, like they're kind of well known. You
Correct.
have Rose McGowan, Shannon Doherty, Holly Marie Combs is not as well known, but she's known.
Yes.
But when I went to meet Rose McGowan that day, I told myself like, "Oh, I'm just, it's a person, it's a human being, just whatever." But when you get up there and you actually see that, oh my god, this thing that's on my TV, it's fucking moving and it's talking, and she looks very, very intimidated by the crowd,
Correct.
and that's weird. Why is that weird to me? And then you start to realize, oh shit, this is an actual human being. These are people.
They are people, and they are not the characters that they portray. They are
Exactly.
completely different. I've had that rude awakening so many a time.
Mm-hmm.
I live in New York, everybody, as you all know, in New York State, but I lived in Staten Island, New York, most of my life, one of the five boroughs. Yes, I know it's the garbage dump, but don't flack me for that. Anyhow, I used to go to one, and I still do on occasion. It's called Chiller Theater Expo or theater convention, and it's in New Jersey. And when you do meet these people, and to add on to what Billy has said, you meet them and you're like, oh my God. But a lot of what Chiller is people who had careers and don't have much as of now, but thrive on these conventions.
Mm-hmm.
So you do have like Rose McGowan, who started the whole Me Too movement at one
Mm-hmm.
point, if you think about it. Holly Marie Combs from that show Charmed as well. You had Shannon Doherty, who was huge celebrity. And then we lost recently, unfortunately, too, with cancer. And she was looking for a comeback. And, you know,
She was
it's
trying. She was really excited about being able to tell her story, especially with the beef with Alyssa Milano and everything that
correct.
really happened. And she was also illuminating how actors and actresses are treated in Hollywood.
Correct.
So, and another thing, real quick, before Mark gets back to what he was saying, real quick.
Good.
Um, Another thing that you also come to understand about these people is
Mhm.
that not only are they people, but they're being exploited by their own industry. So you start to kind of feel bad for them
Yes.
because yes, they've got all the money and everything, but they of all people know how quickly that money comes and goes, and that's
Yes.
why they act this way and do things to themselves so that way they can continue to live those lifestyles.
They have to maintain that constant drive. That train needs to keep on moving. So they have to still burn the fuel or the fire or put the wood on the fire like an old train back in the 20s, just to get it keep going. And yeah, and when I was talking about Chiller, it's like a lot of those actors that you would see. I use the term loosely, has been, but the thing is they still struggle to do work constantly. And I feel bad for them because I still think of them as in the back of my head growing up saying, oh, I saw you on this and I still watch you and I still watch that because I love it. But that doesn't really give them money anymore.
Right.
So they're doing these conventions to make that kind of money. I had made a joke because I went into the men's room at a Chiller Theater and I go to the urinal and David Naughton stands next to me at the urinal. So if you people don't remember who David Naughton is, David Naughton is he was in American Werewolf in London. He was the main actor. Before that, he was the Dr. Pepper kid in the commercials back in the 70s and the early 80s. So I made the joke and I looked over and I'm like, oh, it's like, hello. He goes, hey. I was like, you're not going to get hairy on me and rip my throat out, are you? He goes, no. And I zip up and we're washing hands. And I said, well, I'm going to go have a Dr. Pepper. He goes, really? You're showing your age. I said, hey, he goes, but he said, I appreciate you for remembering that. I'm like, what? He goes, not many people do. And he goes, what's your name? And then we talked. And then I spoke to him again later and I got an autograph from him at his table. But the thing is that's key to what they do. But the thing is, it's also, those people thrive on those conventions and that's fine. It's a good way of making money for people in Hollywood. Billy, there's also a 90s convention too, by the way, because they have 90210, Beverly Hills, 90210. What was the other one? Oh, I forgot.
Dawson's Creek.
Dawson's Creek. All of them.
Yeah.
All the 90s one. They have them in Connecticut now, and they're branching off to go others. But that's a way for them to supplement their income because sometimes jobs don't come in.
Yeah.
But like you said before, you get to see these people and they're real life. They're right in your face and you realize they're a real person. They're not just that image on there. Myself, who works in home theater, I'm in their home. Recently, I was in Corbin Burnson's house, and you all remember him from Law and Order and Major League. And I'm not name dropping everybody. It's not me trying to show off. Hey, look who I met. Yay. No, I'm just stating I got to talk to him casually as a person about his house, his new house, and everything else. And his wife, Amanda Pays, is there. And you all will remember her from the TV show Max Headroom or the first iteration of The Flash. And she's done other movies and shows as well. She's got a heavy British accent. I had a mad crush on her back in the day when I was young. And when I got to talk to her, and I kind of got a little verklempt and flushed at one point to mention that. But I said to her, I said, you should reach out to your friend, John Wesley Shipp, because I saw John at a convention. And I told her I do podcasting, and I just mentioned that. And then she inadvertently told me that I was short because I mentioned how John was so tall. And she goes, no, Mark, you're just short. And I was just like, I didn't take it personally. I was like, yeah, you're right. Because she's just as short as I am.
Yeah.
But it was a way to acknowledge and realize they are people as we are people too. And during the installation, there were issues that they had done for their said house that had been done before we came out, or they didn't realize. I tried to compensate and I fixed and adjusted as they needed. But the thing is they are regular people just the same.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very hard to get away from that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting the way we view celebrity as it is, and that's literally what this shows, is that celebrities are people too.
Right.
Wow, it's like maybe that's the commentary. Celebrities are people too. But then again, they had shows on VH1 like that,
Right.
the Surreal Cast, or
Right.
but people forget that because that's decades ago at this point.
And I think some of that stuff was scripted anyway. So even then, that was
To
artifice.
some
And,
degree.
yeah.
Yeah. But with that, we could go into certain moments and scenes in the movie, favorite scenes that we liked or things that stood out to us. Billy, do you have any?
I have a couple, but I think the one that I always seem to think about is towards the end, where that monstrosity that comes out of her younger self.
The Monstro Alisu.
Yeah.
Elisu that they
Yeah.
put in the card before she shows up.
Yeah.
And then she's got the cardboard or poster face of Demi on her face stapled there,
Hmm.
and she's
Yeah. And
struggling.
you know what's interesting about that is that it's very obvious that this creature is in the dress, but nobody seems to notice until
Mhm.
she's actually on the stage. And I'm like, I wonder how many times that's happened where they're not really looking at, and like I said, with my empathy for actors and stuff,
Yeah,
how many times they don't actually look and see the people to just think product. This is the product's moving to the other room, the product's about to perform.
correct.
And I thought that was a very telling scene. And then the very end of that scene where she's like gushing blood and spraying everybody with all this gore, and I don't know, I loved it. I loved it. Everything's turning red and bloody, and it's just this grotesque, campy moment, and it stopped. That's where the movie stopped being cerebral and just went to just gore. Like, yes,
It
here's
went
all
to
the
true horror of
right,
everything that has culminated throughout the whole movie. It's like it
exactly,
ended at this point, and where she winds up a glob on her Hollywood Walk of Fame star,
right,
which
which is
gets
poetic.
mopped away,
Yeah.
and which kind of is full circle for what we saw in the very beginning,
Hmm.
which we see the egg being injected with a syringe
Hmm.
and then starting its day, and then the introduction of that star being presented, unfolded. You had weathering over time, people walking on it, people puking on it, dropping food on it, and then at the very end, you see it's like somebody left their hamburger or hot dog with
Whatever
ketchup.
that was. Yeah.
It spilled all over it, and it looked like blood.
And I like that part as well because I tell people I used to live in California, everyone. So
Yeah.
I've been to LA a couple times. That Hollywood Walk of Fame is seldom clean.
Oh yes, it is.
When you see it on TV, they just cleaned it. It is seldom clean. It's pretty filthy most of the time.
There are people that are fans that have specific people. Like Adam West has a group of fans that they clean his star
Mm-hmm.
at least once a week. So you have dedicated fans that do that. But there are those that are from Hollywood yore, as I like to call it,
Mm-hmm.
that nobody pays attention. Are they going to Fay Ray's Hollywood Walk of Fame star and cleaning that and polishing it? No, some of them have cracks in them. And some
Yep.
of them are in front of establishments that you would be like, oh, there's a drug deal going right there in front of that star. Or
It's kind of
somebody shooting
ironic.
up, you know?
It's kind of ironic that that's there to honor somebody, but to me that looks like a graveyard.
It is. It is pretty much almost a graveyard, but it's
Mhm.
to me, I still like walking it for the fact that you get to see names. But
Yeah.
I'm a stargazer in that sense of California. But if I lived there, I would have been in. If I lived in Burbank or in that area, and I would just travel it like I have friends that live out there, and they would walk it, and they'll be like, "Yeah, I saw that," or they're the typical YouTubers that do so. They'll show it and they'll do their segment on the person that they're covering, and then they'll go to the grave sites too, because you have Hollywood cemeteries too out there, and
Mhm.
some of them don't have high end cemetery benefits too, by the
No.
way.
Bela Lugosi's grave is small and obscure, and the
Correct.
only reason why people know where it is because the Goths. The Goths know where Bela Lugosi is buried, and they go there.
Mhm.
And they like to do like photo shoots on his grave. And on one hand, I can understand why, but on the other, it's kind of crass that they do that.
That is.
But there's a lot of obscure actors and actresses in that. I can't remember the name of that cemetery either. I know it's like a very um, elite, I would say, quote unquote, elite, because all the stars from Yore, as you referred to it,
Yeah.
are mostly there. So,
Yeah, like Vampira. If
mhm.
you think about it, she was in there too, and she died broke
Mhm.
at a certain point in her career too.
Yep.
By the way, so it's a lot of it go on the wayside. It's like
Mhm.
you'll have people that have like a great mausoleum section, and then you'll have people that are just put in the dirt and have a small little stone dedicated to them, and that's it. That's all they have. You know, if you look at Ed Wood,
Yeah, Ed Wood.
Ed
He
Wood
was
lived in
a
Hyde Park, New York, and
yeah.
I don't know if they brought him up here to be buried in my area, but that's where he lived. But I know they have some sort of mini little monument in Hyde Park
Mhm.
regarding him. But yeah, it's sad. Anywho, to continue back, not to be morbid, a lot of within the movie itself that I did like, to get back to the movie, is getting the substance itself right away. She gets it after a car accident, and
Mhm.
the nurse himself says, "Oh, you're a great candidate," and he's looking at her back, looking at her spine, pinching it, and realizing that she's perfect for this, and she doesn't even know what, but she finds the card and everything in her pocket and where to go and to call, and she does. But as I looked at that scene, I've seen the movie about 3 times so far, he's got a heavy birthmark on his wrist showing imperfections, even on somebody who's in the medical community that is trying to offer something to somebody who is a celebrity, an older celebrity.
Mhm.
And then not only do we get that, but I would love to tell you exactly what we get out of Harvey at a certain point when Elizabeth winds up coming out of her performance or whatever and goes, and the women's room is blocked off.
Out of
She has
order.
to go into the men's room, and Harvey's in there while she's in the stall, and he's already on the phone, and he's in the middle of a conversation, and he goes, "I don't care what we promised her. I need her hot. I need her young. I need her right now. Our network is not a charity. A woman's fertility starts to decrease after the age of 25." Quote. It shows how they put that on women,
Mhm.
of how they're looked at, and you start at this age and then you decline by age whatever. Now, I'm sure it's stretched over the years because certain women still look younger without, you know, plastic surgery or anything like that, but they still maintain their presence. But after a certain age, they're no longer looked at or held or regarded. I take in point of like actors like Anne Heche, who we
Mhm.
lost a while ago. Her stardom had dwindled, and you didn't see anything of her long after her stuff with Ellen DeGeneres, I think. Her
Right.
relationship with Ellen at a certain point, and then she was doing independent films, and then her career kind of faded. That does also happen to men as well, by the way. You see there, like Eric Roberts would be one of them, and not to point out one who we lost a while ago is too, which we actually did cover on this podcast. He was in Cocaine Bear. That would be Ray Liotta, who was a
Mhm.
very pretty man
He
for his
was.
time.
He
He was
was.
very attractive, had great eyes. He was in, Goodfellas. He made such a name for himself. Now, mind you, he wore a lot of mascara, but Uh,
But that's because as a product, they wanted to emphasize his best
explore
feature.
his eyes. My
Right.
sister actually told me that. There
Yeah.
was a sci-fi prison movie that she and I saw, and she told me that was the reason why. She goes, "Look, you could see the mascara in his eyes because they're trying to enhance his eyes on film."
There is another actor who they do that to. I'm trying to think of who it is, but I know for a fact they make him wear mascara because no one's eyes has a solid black line in the waterline like that. Oh my god.
Oh, I know who. I think I know who you're talking about, but I forgot his name.
Yeah. But he's
Is
got
he
like
slightly Hispanic?
yes.
Yes, I think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, but they do that. They'll find your best feature and then they'll emphasize it so that way you can be more sellable.
Yes.
But yeah.
Oh, yeah. But just to go through that, just to point a fact of where the commentary went with the film.
And they're very unforgiving to women for aging.
Correct.
Very unforgiving. Like
They're
when
very unforgiving more for women than they are men. Men could go on forever for decades. They could be the old crotchety old man like
like George Clooney, for example. They think he's so demure. They think he's so distinguished with it in his gray hair and even beard. Like even if they decide not to shave.
Correct.
You know? So it's just the double standard is just so obvious, and it's like I can understand why Demi Moore would feel scared to be nude in this movie.
Yes,
and she didn't wear any prosthetics or anything in those nude scenes. That was 100% her.
Her, yeah.
So, I mean, and which is funny because male actors, obviously, since we just talked about Nosferatu, male actors will wear prosthetic groins and stuff like that.
Correct.
They won't show their real bodies on TV, but women will.
Yeah.
So, just interesting. Food for thought.
Exactly. I thought the transformation was very jarring of how it came, and this is where I speak about Cronenberg, because the way it came out gave me the vibes of Dead Ringers back in the day. If anybody is a David Cronenberg fan, will remember the movie Dead Ringers or The Fly, and how
The Fly was scary.
Yeah, and how they used prosthetics and things of that nature, and how she came out of her back and then she had to sew it up and utilize that. To me, that was very ingenious, and I love that, and I love the way they were able to make that work.
This motif is actually referred to as body horror.
Correct.
And it's been used in several other films like Black Swan, Under the Skin, and Suspiria. Which I think is really interesting because I didn't realize it was an official element of a horror movie. I thought it was just I thought that was an aspect of like the psychological. Well, it is. It literally is, but it's got its own little category, and I didn't realize.
Yes.
But yeah, it's especially because like in feminist horror, where the woman's body is often used as I guess like a stage for horror in itself most times. I thought this was done brilliantly because of that. Sure, her fertility. I mean, he makes commentary about her fertility probably being gone because she's no longer in her 20s. And then one of the things that they put emphasis on when the younger version of herself is on stage performing that was an exercise routine, they put a lot of emphasis on her butt. And even her younger self keeps touching her own butt.
It's weird.
Yeah. There's a lot of emphasis on her ass, and I'm like, oh, that's a very specific
location.
Yeah. What is this emphasis on her butt?
A lot of it, usually with women, they always express more of the breast, size of breast, nipples, or whatnot. I always saw only maybe 2 points in the scene where I saw that, where you could see Demi Moore's breasts are very distinguished and her nipples were very protruding. Whereas
she breastfed in life, so
yeah, and Polly had very subtle nipples, as I should say, to be accurate and not being,
all with respect, of course.
Respect.
It's all with respect, because we understand that people put a lot of what do they call it, negativity on things as something as natural as breastfeeding.
Correct.
which I always thought was weird because that's literally there for nurturing of children. So why are you going to be weird about breasts?
Well, that's always an American thing,
Yeah.
honestly. If you go to other countries, breasts are, it's like, oh, you go to a nude beach, or it's not even a nude beach. They have bottoms on, but they have no tops. They
Yeah.
allow it free willy. And free willy is another thing that you do in nude beaches if you're a guy.
Right.
So you free your willy. Anyhow, but the thing is, it's not looked or shunned down upon, or even including public breastfeeding of
Mhm.
children. So if you go in, like it's kind of stigmatized here in America,
Right.
which it shouldn't be, because Americans are the ones that have made it more sexualized.
Our
As
puritanical origins,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. So it's very odd, but needless to say, I found it very interesting that, you know, they concentrated more on the ass
Yeah.
or the buttocks, as
Yeah.
it were,
I think
of
it's
this.
different for me because as a gay man, when I see breasts, I just think mammary glands. Like I don't.
Well,
There's
even
that.
men have breasts too, by the way,
Yeah.
pal. I don't
Yeah.
know about you, but I got them. I'm getting
But I
old.
don't. I don't think of it in like it doesn't do. It doesn't affect me in the same way as it would,
Yeah,
straight guys because I just see a part of a body.
same here.
So
Same thing. It's like everybody, as you get older, and I'm older,
yeah.
obviously. I'm half a century, everybody. Yeah. But the thing is that if I'm having, and I had to do, when I went for the New York City Police Department, you had to take a physical. You had to be nude with a bunch of men. Now, mind you, they're criticizing what you have tattooed on you. Mind you, I have an American Eagle on me. I have a family crest, which is English. And they were trying to say, hey, and it's like, oh, well, you have a white power tattoo on you. I'm like, no, the one over there is a white power tattoo, and that one's a
Mhm.
Black Panther tattoo. You got to get your guys' logistics proper. And they
Mhm.
all looked at me like, how do you know this? Because I'm explaining it to you, and you don't have anybody authorized enough. But mind you, you have every version of a tallywhacker right in front of me hanging around, and I don't mind it because I understand it. I'm
Mhm.
stuck in a room with a bunch of nude men. And there were women there too, by the way. There were female officers. So it wasn't a thing to be, some guys were uncomfortable, I could tell. Hell, when I had to go for my EKG, I had to do that because we literally had to be in a robe. And some guys were like, I'm not, our asses are sticking out at that point.
Mhm.
And then they had to put the electrodes on us. Or the sensors. I can't see electrodes, and they weren't going to electrocute me. But the thing is that I've come to understand that, and it be more acceptable of it. And then sometimes when I watch movies like this, I understand their perspective. I don't think of it as sexual as a heterosexual man. I'm like, oh wow, oh, I see the boobs. Oh wow, I see her ass. I actually, when I first saw it and I saw her, I was just like, kudos to her.
Mhm. I
For the
thought it was very empowering to see her
it was, and I'm
open
like,
like that.
she is so. Now, mind you, I had an opposite reaction to Jennifer Lawrence and a movie that she did recently where it was complete nudity on the beach, and I forget what
I
the
think I know
movie.
what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was very blatant, and it's a
Yeah.
comedy,
Yeah.
and I was just like, wow, is this going to ruin her career? And I thought almost as if my mother did years ago. There was an actress from the TV show Fame, and she was in a movie called Youngblood, and I'm forgetting the actress's name, unfortunately, but she had done a nude scene in the movie Youngblood, and my mother made a comment, and she had said, "Oh well, her career's going to go downhill from that." And I was like, I didn't understand it. But then again, my mother was very much younger at the time. I think at the time I was very young, but she was in her 40s. My mother was in her 40s.
You're
So
talking about Cynthia Gibb.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the same thing happened with Jo Beth Williams when she was in a movie with raspy voice from Risky Business. Not Risky Business, 48 Hours.
Mhm.
Got the heavy voice. Worked with Eddie Murphy. Anyhow, she was in a movie where she was protesting. She winds up taking off her shirt. My mother even said something at that. And Joe Beth Williams is like, I grew up watching this woman, and it's like, yeah, I'm like, oh, they didn't do this when I was little and covering my eyes. It's like, oh, you see her boobies.
I think it definitely is contextual how people react to nudity. Like
Yeah.
because I used to go to this gym, which was like a health club, and I would shower. And I wouldn't say that I'm a quote unquote shy person, but I am a conscientious person of my body. But when you're bathing in front of other dudes, of course you're going to see their bodies.
Correct.
And I don't associate it as a sexual thing because I know I'm in a public place taking a shower, and
Correct.
this is an appropriate place to be aroused, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it might be contextual. When you're like my friend, when she was breastfeeding her son, I didn't recognize that she was topless until after the fact. I was like, oh,
I didn't
that
realize.
was-
Sorry, you were feeding him.
because in my mind I'm thinking she's feeding her child.
Yeah.
She's just feeding her child. And then afterwards I texted her. I was like, I've never seen you naked before, but yet now I know what you look like. And she goes, oh yeah, I forgot I did that in front of you. I was just like, because of the context. It was the context.
Yeah.
But then there's like some people who, regardless of context, just automatically
They go to
sexualize
that.
bodies. Yeah.
They go to that. I think it's a mindset for
Yeah.
a lot of people, or how they are maturity wise as
Sure.
well.
Sure.
Or it's the situation that you're in. If you think of, there have been other horror movies out there where people are completely naked and put into extreme like scenes of like, what would I say? All right, just to go out there, and this is another one that's out there, everybody. It's crazy. I'm not talking Terrifier. I'm talking the Human Centipede.
Oh my gosh.
So think about that way. So
Yeah.
that's where they were grafting people to people.
Yeah.
And I don't think there was any of that. The only thing that was like disgusting, in my opinion, was the waist.
Yeah.
The waist scene. And that's the one thing that makes me gag.
I can't really watch those movies because of that. Just because I don't do feces. I don't do body waste. I don't do it.
Yeah. But I watched all three, which is odd. The first one, everybody was like, oh my God, it's so scary. I was like, I watched it. I was like, really? And then the second one, I was like, oh my God, that was terrible. And then the third one, I was just like, yeah, they just want money. But I did not sexualize that in any way when I watched it. And I don't think those people that were on set were sexualizing it in any way. But being in that kind of as extreme as it is, to give you an idea, if you're in that position, you're not going to sexualize it that way.
Right.
It's not like in the Green Inferno when the guy's purposely masturbating in the corner in the
I
cage.
forgot about that. Yeah.
Well, that's also that's based off of another movie that was in the 70s, which was originally was banned in several countries, called Cannibal Holocaust. And a lot of people don't like it too because they killed a live turtle in the movie and they ate it and stuff like that. But it also glorified cannibalism and had a lot of things. So it was very controversial for its time. This movie, on the other hand, as we talk about, the substance, this is more of like a commentary more than anything. Those were just pure exploitative at that point. The Human Centipede, Cannibal Holocaust, as well as the Green Inferno. They're all pretty much, exploitative. Very much how what the Evil Dead and everything else was, but those were more true into human contexts and scenarios, but not very humanely.
Right.
But anyhow, to move on with other scenes, I love the regression of Elizabeth when Sue starts depleting her of her context, and it starts off with the finger and it looks bad.
Mm-hmm.
because it looks like an old lady's finger. And then later on, we do see her at that point when she's deprived of her nutrients. She turns into what looks like um, the Wicked Witch in Sleeping Beauty.
Yes.
And she awakens to try to destroy her at a certain point by giving her half or just an empty cartridge to Sue. And that's what really devolves. And then, but what makes Sue turn into the Monstro Eliza Sue
Mm-hmm.
is because she takes half of the substance, which I thought was ingenious and of the creators and the writers that they would do that, because literally Elizabeth's already dead. And if Sue wants to take this substance now, it's as if she's starting it over, but there's nothing more of her. Only a part of her is of Elizabeth. And that's why we get the monstrosity. So if you guys didn't understand that, that's what it is. Elizabeth already is physically dead. The other half of her is dead. But what's still inside of her is Elizabeth in Sue. And then she takes that and it tries to replicate itself and then turns into this morphing monstrosity because she can't do that. You're splitting yourself again.
And there's that scene, real quick, sorry. There's that scene where Sue is killing Elizabeth.
Mhm.
And I actually felt sad watching that scene.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's like, if you want to look at it this way, Sue could also be Elizabeth's saboteur, that voice in her head that tells her she's not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like watching her inner saboteur destroy her physically, like literally kill her.
Yeah.
And you feel a lot of pity, and you feel a lot of just sadness that person is being killed by this entity that is itself.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just it's a very heavy, for me, it was a very heavy scene. So
yeah, I always look at this way, and I kind of mention it too, because I work with people. We all discuss movies that we watched, and they know what I do as far as podcasting and things of that nature. We discuss these films, and I explain it to them. And the way I explain this movie is almost as if it's a Jekyll and Hyde,
yes,
yin and yang kind of movie where it's the same person, but they're split.
Mm-hmm.
It's I hate referencing a song that I wrote years ago, Total Eclipse of the Mind.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, it's the same person split in half. It could be a serial killer who has a duality within them, but that's what it is. And it was pointed out in the very beginning. You are the same person. You are not two individuals, so they have to work together. And the thing is that they were trying to separate.
Right. Well, because then also the thing that also got my attention was, so we know that obviously Elizabeth is the source.
Yes.
But when does Elizabeth stop being Elizabeth and is Sue?
That is a good question. There's a certain point within the movie, there is a change.
Because Sue is obviously Elizabeth's ambition and her vanity.
Correct.
And when Elizabeth has the chance to terminate Sue, she doesn't. Because even in the end, even in that moment where she's literally falling to pieces, splitting at the seam, there's that part of her that's like, I want this part of my life, her career, her acting career, to stay alive. And Sue is the only path to that. So at what point is Elizabeth and is now Sue?
Correct.
Which is sort of weird because it's like when Sue's killing Elizabeth, you're like, oh, I feel so bad for Elizabeth. But then it's like, wait, but that could be Elizabeth trying to destroy a part of herself so she can continue to thrive. So it's one of those, like I said, it's a heavy scene.
Mm-hmm.
You have a lot of thoughts while watching that part.
Yeah. Well, that's all that I have as far as interesting, my favorite moments in the movie and things to bring up as discussion. I don't know about you, Billy. Do you have anything else or no?
No, that was it. It's a really excellent movie, and it makes you think a lot. Obviously, it made me think a lot while watching it, and I plan on watching it again sometime soon. So
Yeah, I did an early. I watched it a little earlier before we came on, and had to do another watch. It was my third watch, and I hadn't watched it in a while. It's been like a month or so, and I was like, you know what? Really need to sit down. A lot of it sit and stewed in my head for a long time. It's not like it didn't, but there were little nuances, things that I wanted to put together and write down and put in as a focal point of discussion. But yeah, it's something I definitely would probably watch again or mention to somebody to watch together. And they'll probably like, why are we watching this? There's something wrong with you.
Well, if you wanted to get a little liberal artsy, you could definitely do like a movie day where you watch movies that are like it. So if you want to do like Black Swan, Suspiria, then this, you could see what the similarities are, and maybe it would help you understand.
Now, mind you, Suspiria, which one are you talking about? The 1970s version, or are you talking about the remake?
Well, I think the remake would be more in tandem to this
this genre.
Right, this motif, I guess you could say. But I like the original better, in my honest opinion. It's more Italian.
Yeah,
that's why. And I liked was it D'Argentino?
Dario Argento, is it?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah, it's an Argento movie. Yeah,
but yes, I like those aesthetics better. But I liked having Tilda Swinton in the more recent one because I just love her in general.
Oh, I love her in anything. Yeah. I mean, she's amazing. She is like the David Bowie of acting.
Yeah, and she's androgynous. Yeah, just like it.
Yeah, we've said this before, everybody.
Yeah.
All right, let's move right into the next subject on this film, which would be interesting facts or unknown facts about the movie, which is The Substance that came out in 2024. So you want to start us off with the first one?
Yeah. Speaking of Ray Liotta, sorry, he was actually supposed to play Dennis Quaid's character. And they've been trying to produce this movie for a while. So he died in 2022, and they were going to cast him as Dennis Quaid's character, but unfortunately he died in May. So they changed it to Dennis Quaid. And I wonder what the movie would have been like if he played that character instead of Dennis Quaid. I wonder what he would have brought to it.
I wonder if it would have been a little bit more flamboyant than what Quaid would. Quaid seemed more aggressive as a male, and I could see Liotta being a little bit more flamboyant, more bravos to it, like more dramatic.
Yeah.
Not like ha 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 ha, but more hey, how you
or like
doing?
That, like, or I would
like
say
a showman.
Yeah, I was gonna say more like slimy, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he is still mentioned in the director's thank you notes during the credits, so he still gets a what's up from the movie producers.
Awesome. He's always remembered. Yeah, thankfully. Next up, Margaret Qualley revealed in interviews that her breasts in the movie are not her own. They are prosthetics designed by French makeup artist Pierre-Olivier Persin.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, Demi Moore said she was nervous about filming full nudity at the age of 59 and felt vulnerable, but she credited her co-star, Margaret, who was 29 at the time of filming, portrayed a younger version of her character with making her feel comfortable on set. Qualley also performed totally naked. When did she use fake breasts, though? Was it during that scene?
I'm not sure. That's a good question. That's where physical media usually comes in handy at this point. If you get a Blu-ray, 4K Blu-ray, they have deleted scenes or interviews. But, that's for the purists out there who are movie files that are out there that love that stuff.
I kind of think it's wise of Margaret to do that because I think I'm going to assume this of her, not knowing her in real life or not knowing why she did this. But from an outside perspective, maybe in her mind, she's like, this could be me one day, and I want to make... If I were young me looking at old me, I'd want old me to feel good about themselves. So I like that. And it's kind of very sisterhood, very, I got your back. I like that.
Next up, in the film, Elizabeth Sparkle turns 50 years old. Demi Moore, who plays the character, was almost 60 at the time of shooting the film. Now, got to give that woman a lot more praise.
Yeah.
It
That was
shows that,
great.
yeah, she does look far younger than what she really is. Trust me.
In several interviews, Demi Moore said that reading the script for this movie reminded her of the script of Ghost, because the chance that it could be amazing or a disaster was the same. That was crucial for her to accept the role. I like that also because she saw it as a challenge and was like, I did amazing with Ghost. I can do amazing with this. And she did.
Yeah, she did a lot already. Yeah. And it's so funny too that mentioning Ghost, because I had a conversation recently about Ghost, which is so funny. Another movie that got away, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, by the way, the trivia that we gave you in the very beginning, who Dennis Quaid was married to is Meg Ryan.
See, now
And
that is definitely someone who hasn't been on TV in a very
very
long time.
long time as well.
And they gave her a lot of hell too because of her general mannerisms.
Mm-hmm.
They literally, you guys, Mad TV. Mad TV is the best reference point to go if you want to know what anyone felt about anything before the year 2000.
That is true.
Mad TV. Go to Mad TV. It'll spoon feed you. It will.
and it only lasted what, 3 seasons originally, and then they did it on either Comedy Central or some other platform at one point digitally for a few years.
Hold on.
And by the way, everybody, their son is Jack Quaid, who plays in The Boys.
And it was his brother who was in the National Lampoons?
Oh, Randy Quaid was cousin Eddie in National Lampoon's Vacation.
He went off the deep end too, so that was really interesting.
Yeah. Well, actually, there have been interviews with Dennis Quaid recently at conventions, and they ask him about Randy, and he goes, "I really miss my brother." And he hasn't really seen or talked to him in a while, too.
Real quick, Mad TV was 14 seasons long.
Really?
Yeah, from 95 to 2009.
I know that they did it on because originally it was a Fox TV show at one point. For the first 3 seasons, it took a break and then it came back to a regular cable-based.
They were doing a lot of. It's funny, and now we're talking a lot about Mad TV, but it's funny because if you watch the first few seasons, they talk a lot about Fox and how much Fox is like a pain in the ass. And then I can't remember the guy.
Will Sasso?
No. They got produced by someone else after Fox. Oh my God, what's his name?
Ted Turner?
No, it's oh my God. Oh my God! Every time I think of him, I always think of Lando Calrissian from Star Wars. For some reason.
That's interesting. Okay,
hold on.
Quincy Jones?
Yes, Quincy Jones.
Okay.
Quincy Jones produced Mad TV for the longest time.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
For those of you listening, Quincy Jones is a prominent producer, and he produced a lot of big time music.
Yes.
Like Michael Jackson.
Mm-hmm. And he did all sorts of different mediums too. So anyway.
A little bit of trivia there and information that we didn't really think you'd get. Anyhow. All right. So that's all we have for unknown or interesting facts about the movie The Substance from 2024. Not to make this too long, but this has been the first podcast in a while since we were last on. So but we're at that point in the podcast of like, do you have any quotes from the movie that you want to talk about or mention?
My favorite was when she goes to that diner and she sees that old man and they're talking about, and he's recognizes her obviously. Yeah. Because it turns out that old man was the young man at the very beginning of the movie. And he says, each time you feel a little more lonely, because he's talking about when the switch happens, each time you feel a little bit more lonely, don't you think? It gets harder each time to remember that you still deserve to exist, that this part of yourself is still worth something, that you still matter. And that kind of puts emphasis on my earlier comment about when is Elizabeth Sue and when is Elizabeth?
Very true.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's my quote. I like that quote. I think about that quote. So
I only have one more. I already gave away Harvey's in the middle. We already have the synopsis, which was one of them that I had written down, but one more from Harvey. Let's do this. Okay, it's to the shareholders saying, "You will not be disappointed. She's my most beautiful creation. I have shaped her for success." Think about it, everybody.
Right. Exactly.
All right. So I think that about sums up everything that we could talk about when it came to the substance. And we digressed a lot, but we had a good conversation. I'm really happy about it. I hope you listeners did enjoy it as well. And soon we'll give you the idea of sending in feedback. So that way, if you have an opinion about this movie, you could still send in some sort of feedback regarding it if you like. But for now, where can listeners hear you, Billy?
Well, I have my own podcast called The Slay Lounge, which covers anything and everything having to do with strong, mostly fictional women who I just admire to pieces. You can catch us, the Slay Lounge podcast on Spotify, YouTube, and now I'm hearing Apple. Apple has us,
Yes.
so you can catch us there, and we're through Pirate Core Entertainment. We also have our own Instagram, which is the Slay Lounge Podcast,
Correct.
which right now we've only done a couple episodes of Buffy, but as I was saying very earlier in the podcast, been taking a break because of the holidays. But we're going to get right back into that very, very soon. So you'll hear me do an episode covering Alien, and then we will continue on with Buffy, and then I'll probably diverge and start doing Gilmore Girls, and then some other stuff. So Pirate Core Entertainment, Spotify, YouTube, Apple, the Slay Lounge Podcast.
Correct. And for those of you who need more direct, it's literally all you have to do is subscribe to the Pirate Core Entertainment Podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts at your player of choice. So we mix those in because it's literally to give a vehicle for both Billy and Will for the Slay Lounge podcast and what's on tonight. An overall. So you could go there. You'll probably see, it'll state flat out what's on tonight, their episode, what they're covering. Same thing with the Slay Lounge cast.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, I'll go right into what I'm doing. You could hear me, as always, here on Adrenaline Cinema Podcast. As always, coming up, we will be doing Ricky O. And yeah, I've been talking about this for a long time. And Frank and I just have not gotten together. We have to really get together before the new year, but the new year is almost here. So it might be here for next year. By the time you get this, it'll probably be just around New Year's Eve. So anyhow, you hear me here on Adrenaline Cinema Podcast as always, as well as Panels to Pixels podcast, which we are back. And we will be back. By the time you get this, we would already have covered our year-end review. And we'll start covering our getting our coverage of What If that is on Disney Plus. We're doing 3 episodes at a time. It's probably going to be myself, Rob Moda, Steve Brown, and Becky Fenner Anderson. So we're going to do that as well. So you could check that out on a Panels to Pixels podcast. We're going to also probably cover Craven and throw in our review into that. By that time we get to it, it's going to be out of the theaters and probably on digital download or streaming at that point because they pulled it. Anyhow, and then there's going to be other stuff. Invincible's coming back. There's so much coming out, especially with the Adrenaline Cinema Podcast. We're going to get into Mayfair Witches again for season 2. Invincible is coming back. There's a whole slew of stuff that's out there. We'll have some suggestions on Panels to Pixels podcast as well, because there's going to be some shows that we haven't even touched or talked about that came out this year. So we're going to talk about that in a year-end review. And you could also look forward to me, as well as possibly Billy and everybody else, coming on the Pirate Core Entertainment Podcast music podcast. So that's
Mhm.
going to be a main point for the new year of coming out at least once or twice a month. Once or twice, everybody. That's it. So basically, we're going to be covering a music artist, a particular music artist and album. It depends on what and who wants to cover it or who's covering it and hosting. So I won't be the host at all times, but we will have friends on like Billy, like Becky, probably my friend Lara, uh, Rima Joe, Ben Beck. Who knows? Anybody that wants to come on to cover this. This is something that's fairly new to a lot of my friends who are other fellow podcasters, and we want to do this properly. Rob Moda is definitely in the mix too. And to keep in mind with PirateCarEntertainment.com, a lot of you people knew Fantasy Picks Movie Edition went away, but Filmtropolis will be coming out soon enough. And we have a lot of heavy recording to do, apparently. So
Gonna be a busy time.
It's going to be a busy time. This year's going to be busy for us. So with that, I mentioned feedback earlier. So for you to find us and send in feedback, all you have to do is go to our Facebook page, facebook.com, AdrenalineCinemaPodcast. It's facebook.com/AdrenalineCinemaPodcast. That's all you have to do. Subscribe to that. Like whatever we post. So generally what we do is we try to throw in stuff in there as far as images. Hey, this is what we're covering. Just put it in the comments below. And usually what's on Facebook goes on our Instagram, which would be Adrenaline Cinema Podcast. So whatever's there on Facebook will be on Instagram. Just send us a message and we'll get them. Put them in the comments below or direct message. Same thing with Facebook Messenger. We'll get them just the same. And or if you like to, you could send us an email. And all you have to do is send out a regular written email to AdrenalineCinemaPodcast@gmail.com. Just write out your thoughts. We'll read them on the next podcast. Doesn't necessarily have to be the podcast that we're covering at that time or what we're covering, that's subject. It could be something that we've done in the past. It could be something that we did last week or something that you want us to do or what you want to be on to do. Because I always offer that if you have a decent pair of headphones, a microphone, and Zoom capability. So with that, let us know. And as always, if you are subscribed to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any podcast player of choice that gives some sort of rating or review, please do so. Be greatly appreciated. 5 stars are always welcomed, but I always ask people to be very honest. And if you write something that's very notable and people see it, I could read it, and I could actually read it and thank you if you were nice. If you were, well, not so happy, I'd still read it and then take that criticism and accept it. Because honestly, we all have opinions. So, but anyhow, if you could do that, be greatly appreciated. As always, go to the PirateCoreEntertainment.com website and then check out everything there. It's still under construction. We still have to get things moved around. I still have to learn WordPress 200% to get everybody there because I want to get what's on tonight, all their links, splash page, same thing with the Slay Lounge and the music podcast. I want to get that all taken care of. So that way, hopefully within a year, we could get more people interactive. And keep in mind, yes, YouTube is always there for all the podcasts. So for Pirate Car Entertainment Podcast, there's a YouTube channel. Subscribe. Adrenaline Cinema Podcast, there's a YouTube channel. Subscribe. Same thing with Panels the Pixels Podcast. So do so and then give a thumbs up, subscribe, and word spread like a virus. Please tell a friend. Don't spread a virus though. But anyway, I just want to thank everyone for listening. I'm Mark.
And I'm Billy with an IE.
There you go. And this was Adrenaline Cinema Podcast, and we'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.